In Pope John Paul II's 1993 encyclical, Veritatis Splendor, in his section on care for creation, he talks about resources. First of all, non-renewable resources. And non-renewable resources, he says, are often in these poorer countries where civil war is off to break out. But then also on our front, the domestic resources, how are we using those? But what's interesting about where he goes to from there is the kind of cyclical, what comes around, goes around, comes around. So in other words, the way we use our resources of nature is going to affect how we use our resources of those around us. So they're not to be exploited, they're to be used, but in other words, how we treat creation is going to affect how we treat our neighbors. John Paul II uses another analogy with creation, and that's the analogy of the virtues. So if you think of the life of the virtues, when one starts to wane, it affects the others. It's like a ripple effect. So I know for me personally, with my alarm clock, if on a day where maybe I lose the battle with the alarm clock, I hit the snooze many, many times, chances are I'll be groggy, maybe a little bit more grumpy with my brothers. But the idea is that when one kind of area of your life is less than ideal, or much less than ideal, then it just affects the rest. And you can't view one in isolation or the other. So the same would be true with creation, John Paul II says. When we disrespect creation, it's not, nature isn't just creation. Nature is our friends, our family, our wife, our brothers. So when our virtues towards creation start to fracture, they in turn will fracture our human relationships. So it's not just about us with creation, it's us with the good of all humanity, really.
Our culture rightly values human rights. In fact, pick any hot-button political issue, and both sides are likely to use rights language in order to bolster its point of view. For example, pro-lifers defend the right to life of an unborn child. Pro-choice people defend the right of a woman to decide what's best for her family. But in all this talk of rights, the one element that's often missing is the importance of duty and communal responsibility. The element of communal responsibility ensures that a boundary is created, a proper boundary and context in which human rights can properly flourish and be protected. Without this social aspect, human rights can quickly devolve into license to do whatever I want, regardless of the impact on you or on my fellow human beings. But most importantly, social responsibility and communal duty keep us connected to the broader framework of humanity. It takes individual liberty and puts it in relationship with the common good. And in doing so, it brings us closer to God.
If you think about some of the wonders of the world, the Grand Canyon, the cliffs of Moher in Ireland, you're struck by just the bigness, the immensity, the vastness of it. But the question is, with creation in particular, is what do you do with that vastness? And there's two extremes that come to mind. One would be over-reverencing it. So you have the Eastern monks who sweep before themselves so they don't touch any insects or kill any insects. It's a beautiful spirituality, but it's almost, divinizing creation in a way. And so the Catholic Church wouldn't do that. But the Catholic Church also is against a temptation that we might fall into as Americans, which would be to under-reverence creation, in that we just kind of consume it, use it, manipulate it for our own use. So we want to be somewhere in the middle, not over-reference, and not to overuse, to view it as a true fruit. You pick fruit, you don't just leave it on the tree, but you also don't kind of hoard fruit or waste fruit. So with care for creation, we're thinking about the poor, they need their resources, but we're also thinking about future generations, those that we can't even see. It's really the vastness of creation. In part, it's about the inheritance. We've inherited this gift of creation, and what do we do with that? So inheritance, existence, we're dealing with truth itself. Aquinas in the Summa often talks about how one way we can describe God is existence itself. So insofar as anything exists, it exists, because of the gift of life. God is that source of that life. Before Abraham was, I am. That's what it's about.
What is it like to see the world as God sees it? What do artists like the Dominican painter Fra Angelico see when they look upon the beauty of creation? Through the Incarnation, God showed us the extent of divine love, putting down the brush and entering his own work, infusing it with his sweat, blood, and tears. May we, with the help of grace and the Holy Spirit, also learn to see as God sees, to see as an artist sees. And in that process, let us learn to greater reverence, cherish, and care for this beautiful cosmic work of art we call creation.